The mud on his boots wasn't Terran. It was pale blue and flecked with tiny bioluminescent threads that blinked like dying stars with each step. He left glowing footprints across the obsidian floor of the Galactic detainment facility, as if the universe were tracking him personally. They'd stripped him of his armor, his sidearm, even his dignity, or so they thought, but they hadn't touched the boots. Maybe it didn't occur to them. Maybe they just didn't know where humans kept their ghosts. Sergeant Micah Dawes didn't limp, though he had every reason to. His ribs ached with a hot, throbbing pulse, and his shoulder was still out of socket from the crash. One eye was nearly swollen shut, the other watching everything. He walked like he was late for a lunch meeting, not a military tribunal, humming under his breath some old country tune. Maybe Merle, maybe Johnny. The aliens couldn't tell. At least 20 species lined the perimeter of the dark chamber, scaled, feathered, photosynthetic, armored. They sat on hovering thrones or crouched on crystalline vines. Some glared, some smirked, most simply stared. To them, Dawes was less a soldier than an artifact, a biological curiosity hauled in from the unregulated hellhole known as Earth. A stray beast with opposable thumbs and a suicide complex. General Threx of the Praxian Ascendancy leaned forward from his elevated dais, 8 feet tall, covered in pale exoskeletal plates, his forearms folded in ritual disdain. His voice was a wet rasp of crushed coral and venom. "You are the human," he said, as though tasting something bitter. "You surrendered." Dawes raised an eyebrow. "Wouldn't say surrendered, sir. Just ran out of places to walk in circles." Murmurs rippled through the council. A diplomat with gills blinked twice in confusion. A bulbous empath recoiled slightly, as if stung by tone alone. Threx sneered. "You were surrounded." "I was leading," Dawes replied. "Just took me a while to notice no one was following." The general rose, descending the steps one by one. His claws clacked like distant thunder across the chamber floor. He stopped inches from the human, towering over him, reeking of rust and war pheromones. "You mock the Empire?" Dawes tilted his head. "No, sir. Just conversational." Without warning, the general struck him across the chest with the blunt of his lower arm. The sound echoed, sick and hollow. Dawes staggered half a step back. One knee hit the floor. He didn't cry out. From the back of a room, a soft gasp escaped an alien aide, small, frog-eyed, with a translator unit blinking nervously. "What's that on his neck?" the aide whispered. "Look." The thin silver chain had slipped out from Dawes' torn shirt. It swung loosely as he righted himself. A simple military dog tag, except the inscription didn't read Dawes, or Sergeant, or even Earth Forces. It read Alibaba YJ. Silence collapsed over the tribunal like a dropped curtain. The empath began to tremble. The guild diplomat leaned toward the general. "Do you understand what that name means to humans?" Threx scoffed. "A myth. A witch in a wooden house. Why should I fear that?" "It's not fear," the diplomat murmured. "It's designation. A human assigned that to himself." Dawes stood fully now, wiped the blood from his lip with his thumb, and looked up at Threx with one good eye and a broken smile. "I didn't pick the name," he said. "My CO gave it to me. Said it fit. I guess I have a way of showing up when I shouldn't." "Enough of this," Threx growled. "You are in violation of 23 interstellar codes, 6 war mandates, and at least 1 planetary sovereignty. You will be processed, dismantled, studied." "Sure," Dawes said, "but just know I wasn't the scout." That gave the room pause. A long one. A 2-headed alien to Threx's right leaned in. "If he's not the scout, then where's the—" A new screen lit up in the council chamber's rear wall. A human military symbol. Flashed once, then vanished. Threx turned. What was that? No one answered. Dawes rocked on his heels. "Funny thing about human myths," he said. "They usually come with fire." The general stepped closer until his mandibles hovered at Dawes' face. "We burned your colonies." "I noticed." "We dissected your soldiers." "Poorly." "We razed your settlements down to bone and ash." Dawes looked him in the eye. "Then you really shouldn't have let me in the room." Threx raised one claw again, poised to strike harder this time. The aide from before, small and panicked, hurried forward, holding up a trembling datapad. "General," the aide stammered. "The signal from his tag, it's not just biometric. It's broadcasting." "To whom?" The aide hesitated. "Then we don't know. It's bouncing through 6 encrypted layers and routing back through dead satellites. But it's active." The room dimmed. The chamber lights flickered once, twice. Systems that had been perfect for centuries suddenly groaned. Dawes sat down calmly on the floor, cross-legged, like he was settling in for a fire pit story. "Y'all mind if I sit?" "Kinda sore from the last crash. Ship exploded before the coffee even brewed." "Why are you smiling?" the general barked. "'Cause I know how this ends." The aide's translator cracked again. "General, new signals. 5 more human ships, just uncloaked near the moons of Vathros. And, sir, they're not broadcasting any diplomatic intent." "You said Earth was broken," another alien shrieked. "Sure we are," Dawes said. "That's when we're most dangerous." He reached into his boot, no one had thought to check it, and pulled out a small metallic sphere the size of a plum. He didn't press it. He just rolled it between his fingers. The council erupted. Everyone shouted over each other in dozens of tongues. Orders, threats, prayers. Threx snarled, "You will hand that over." Dawes shrugged. "Technically, this is a diplomatic device. I press it, and we negotiate terms. By which I mean you beg, and we decide how much of your empire is left standing." "You bluff." He looked down at his boots, coated in the soft blue mud of alien worlds. Then looked up again, quieter now. "I walked through 7 of your colonies to get here. You really think I came alone?" The lights dimmed again. Outside the chamber, far above the council, human warships adjusted their trajectory. Inside, the air turned colder. Someone whispered, "He's just one man." And Dawes, with his voice low, said, "Yeah, but I'm the one you kicked." He smiled again, slow and wolfish, as the tag around his neck blinked once, red, then green. And that's when the siren started. The chains were ceremonial, which was funny, considering the circumstances. They weren't there to restrain Micah Dawes, just to signal that he was meant to be restrained. Thick silver rings with glowing Praxian script coiled around his wrists, humming softly like a lullaby for monsters. They didn't pinch. They didn't bite. They didn't need to. That wasn't the point. This was a parade, not a prison. A lesson, not a lockup. They marched him into the grand arena under 2 suns and a banner that read, roughly translated, "Even Earth can be tamed." A laughable thing, really. The crowd roared with the glee of those who'd never known fear firsthand. Rows upon rows of alien faces, scaled, boneless, feathered, glassy-eyed. Rose like an endless sea of judgment. Children clutched sticky sweets. Elders passed judgment through monocles and data spectacles. Vendors sold war trinkets and rubber human dolls in cages, the kind that squeaked when squeezed. Above it all hovered drones, capturing every second for the broadcast. The Empire's great conquest, televised galaxy-wide. And at the center, alone beneath the twin suns, was Dawes. No weapon, no backup, no helmet, just his boots, still muddy, and the faint clink of the dog tag that tapped gently against his chest with every step. He didn't stumble. He didn't bow. He just looked up, slow, taking in the arena like a man inspecting a theater before opening night. No one noticed that he was counting exits, angles, wind vectors, distance to the guard towers. Because nobody ever thinks the dead man's still planning. The Praxian announcer, speaking in a dozen tones and 6 languages, introduced him as the last of Earth's dogs. The phrase got a laugh. Dawes smiled too. He liked that one. In a private box above the arena floor, General Threx watched with smug satisfaction, flanked by diplomats and aristocrats, and one curious-looking alien with compound eyes and a scholar's robe. The latter leaned forward, quietly adjusting his recording node. "Strange," the scholar murmured. "He walks like he's free." Threx dismissed the thought with a flick of one claw. "He's posturing. All humans bluff." "Some bluffs," said the scholar, "carry fire." Down below, the announcer declared the formal charges. Crimes against the Empire. Sabotage. Psychological warfare. Improvised cultural disruption. Whatever that meant. Dawes just rolled his eyes and whispered, "You forgot unpaid parking tickets." Then they asked him if he had any last words. He nodded politely, stepped up to the podium that had been brought out just for show. It squeaked under his weight. Praxian craftsmanship was ornamental, not durable. He scanned the crowd, picked out a child licking something yellow on a stick, saw a soldier in ornate armor trying too hard to look bored, saw a trio of camera drones all zoomed in on his face. Then he spoke. "You ever hear of a guy named McNamara?" Dawes asked, smiling slightly. "No, didn't think so." He once said, "In war, the only thing worse than being wrong is being certain." There was silence. "You're all so certain," he continued, stepping down from the podium, "that we're beaten. That this," he waved to the stadium, "means victory. That pain is weakness and smiles are surrender. But that's not how humans work. Pain's just the price of growing up. And smiling? Well, we smile because we know." Know what exactly? The crowd didn't ask, but they all felt it. That twinge. That cold breath of uncertainty. "You know what the difference is," he said, "between you and me?" He looked up at the high box where Threx sat. Their eyes met. "You think this is a stage? I know it's a trap." Threx shot to his feet. "Cut the feed." "Too late," Dawes replied and pointed upward. All across the Empire's homeworld, screens flashed. Not Empire propaganda, but Earth transmission feeds. Interference. Images of stars repositioning. Orbital scans. Tactical overlays. Names of cities glowing red. Everything blinking from Empire blue to Earth's pale white insignia. "I told you," Dawes said, "I wasn't the scout." In the control chamber beneath the arena, technicians scrambled. Comm panels flickered. One officer shouted, "Sir, they've hijacked our satellites, all of them." Threx slammed a claw on the console. "This is a bluff. Earth has no fleet, no capacity to deploy." "Sir," another officer interrupted, "there are human ships in low orbit. They've been cloaked. They're everywhere." Above the arena, the sky shimmered. One by one, the stars went out. "No, we're blotted out. Human dreadnoughts. Silent. Vast. No signal of aggression. Just presence." The crowd screamed. Not in unison. Not yet. Just small bursts at first. Mothers scooping up children. Vendors dropping trays. Guards raising rifles they didn't understand would never be fast enough. Dawes sat cross-legged on the arena floor. Perfect center. Calm. His chains still shimmered on his wrists, but he didn't flinch as alarms blared. The scholar in the high box turned to Threx, voice oddly quiet amid the chaos. "Do you know the meaning of Baba Yaga?" "A children's tale," Threx snarled. "No," the scholar said. "A warning. A story told so no one goes into the woods alone. A name whispered when monsters fear something worse than themselves." Threx's eyes snapped to Dawes, who looked up now, not at him, but at the camera drone above, speaking directly to the galaxy. "You were never meant to break us," he said. "You were meant to prove why we don't come out. Why Earth stays quiet. Why we warned you." Distant booms shook the floor beneath him. In orbit, human ships released small, precise pods. They didn't explode. Not yet. They embedded. They burrowed. They whispered countdown in the bones of Empire infrastructure. A voice, female, smooth and calm, echoed through every alien channel. "Initiating negotiation stage. Earth protocol. Remember Hiroshima." In the arena, a trembling alien child dropped his yellow sweet. Dawes reached into his jacket. Yes, he had a jacket now. Someone had given it back, which meant someone had switched sides, and pulled out a single slip of paper. Folded, faded, and human. He read it aloud. "First they came with banners. Then with fire. Then with chains. But we smiled and waited and remembered our names. And when the gates opened, they learned we never come alone." He folded the paper and put it back. In the control room, systems rebooted. Then failed again. Earth had already rewritten the code. Threx stumbled, demanding order. But his voice was lost beneath the sound of something overhead, a low hum growing deeper. A sound like a warning. The scholar backed away from the glass, eyes wide. You shouldn't have paraded him. I was making a point, Threx hissed. You did, the scholar replied. And now the galaxy understand it. From his seat on the floor, Dawes tapped his dog tag once. It blinked. Not red. Not green. A new color. One only humans would recognize. Burnt orange. The color of autumn. The color of warning. The color before the fall. And above them, in the silence between suns, Earth's fleet waited for his next breath. The orbit of Varnak Prime shimmered with unnatural stars. Dark masses that hadn't been there the day before. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't signal. They simply were, hanging like patient wolves above a pasture full of slow cattle. And every Empire sensor operator knew, without a doubt, that those shapes weren't asteroids. Inside the grand arena, chaos twisted in every direction. Families stampeded from the exits. Dignitaries screamed for evacuation craft that would never reach them in time. Sirens wailed in a dozen languages. Soldiers aimed rifles at a man who wasn't aiming anything at them. Micah Dawes remained seated in the dirt, calm as a monk beneath the storm. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his dog tag, watching it flicker in that slow, deliberate rhythm. Burnt orange. Again. Again. Every blink a metronome, counting down to something no one could name. General Threx stood at the edge of the royal balcony, fists clenched so tight that pale dust powdered from the seams of his exoskeleton. Disable their fleet, he barked into his communicator. Launch orbital strikes. Scramble interceptors. But the reply that came was not from his officers. It wasn't even from a voice he recognized. A woman spoke. Her voice crackled into every channel, calm and distinctly human. General Threx, this is Commander Evelyn Knox of Earth Command. You are currently surrounded by 72 Earth warships. We are not here to conquer. We are here to correct. Threx recoiled. Correct? Correct what? Dawes looked up and for the first time rose to his feet. Slowly, deliberately, not like a prisoner, like someone stretching after a long nap. We warned you, Dawes said softly. Centuries ago we warned you, when we burned our own sky, when we made monsters in our image. You watched from orbit and said, let them be. You didn't invite us to the stars. You just assumed we'd never get there. And you should not have, Threx growled. Your kind is feral, unruly. You're a mistake in the flow of evolution. Dawes cracked his neck. And yet here I am, talking while your command center's on mute. The sky above the arena blinked again. More ships uncloaked, silently gliding into position, forming concentric rings above the planet. Each bore the Earth insignia, a minimalist white circle, fractured at the center, like an old ceramic plate. Every ship pointed downward. From the balconies of the arena, alien officials raised binoculars, translators, sensor equipment. Their faces, scaled, translucent, furred, drained of color, whatever color they had to begin with. Is this war? One whispered. No, said Dawes. This is the part before. From beneath the arena, another transmission broadcasted into the capital's main network. This time it was video, a live feed. A council of humans sat in a clean, sparse room. None wore armor. No weapons. No expressions of rage. Just suits. Eyes. Names labeled below them. Admiral Zhu. Director Mahoney. Strategist Dr. Umarios. Each calm. Each quiet. Then the screen shifted to footage of alien war crimes. Of raised human colonies. Of children coughing in rubble. Of the Empire's soldiers laughing over the corpses. A final clip, Dawes being struck by Threx in the tribunal hall. Then the screen cut to black and a single sentence appeared, in every known tongue. We don't threaten. We prepare. Threx howled, this is manipulation. Dawes turned to him. No, this is context. Below the arena, the humans' fail-safe pods embedded earlier began releasing soft pulse signal bursts. They didn't explode. They sang. Frequencies that disarmed Praxian technology. Reverse code. turned weapons to static. Infrastructure folded. Traffic systems shut down. Power grids blinked out like candles in a windstorm. All over the capital, alien citizens ran to shelters that no longer recognized their genetic codes. Doors stayed locked. Alarms failed. Entire towers flickered and collapsed as Earth's silent code corrupted their supports. "You wanted a show," Dawes said, his voice rising now, still even, still unhurried. "You dragged a human into your bloodsport pit to humiliate him. You mocked Earth. You filmed it. You shared it. So we turned it into a demonstration." Threx backed away, stunned. "You can't do this. There are rules. Galactic Accords." "Written by you," Dawes said. "For wars you assumed you'd always win. You still bleed. You still die. You're not gods." "No," Dawes agreed. "We're worse. We're history. And history doesn't stop. It just waits." He turned toward the camera drone, now hovering close again, recording. "To every citizen of the Galactic Empire," Dawes said, "Earth does not seek territory. We don't want slaves, taxes, or tribute. We don't even want your apologies. We just want your understanding." Behind him, one of the human ships began to glow, venting plasma in a spiraling ring. "When you kicked the man in chains," he continued, "you were already out of time." A nearby soldier, hands shaking, dropped his rifle. Another simply knelt. Dawes looked to the sky. The warship did not fire. Instead, it released an array of holographic beams, projecting an ancient Earth photo into the atmosphere. A black-and-white image of Hiroshima, 1945. Leveled city. Shadow burned into stone. The image spun slowly above the capital. And below it, one word in red. "Remember." Threx fell silent. There was nothing left to say. The city began shutting itself down. Not from human interference, but from fear. Civilians huddled in shadows. Soldiers turned off their comms. Drones blinked and vanished. Empire dignitaries fled their seats. "You could fire," Threx said, almost begging. "You could destroy us. Why wait?" Dawes' voice softened. "Because we're giving you a chance. Something you never gave us. Time. To think. To remember. To teach your children better stories." He raised the dog tag from around his neck, holding it between thumb and finger. "You thought it was just a name," he said. "But Baba Yaga isn't about witches or woods. It's about what happens when you cross a line and something older than fear walks out to greet you." From orbit, the Earth ships began to slowly reposition, not retreating, just adjusting, angling downward, waiting. And then, for the first time, Commander Evelyn Knox spoke again, only this time to Dawes directly. "Sergeant Dawes, you are cleared for Phase 4. If you choose." He looked around. The ruined stadium. The terrified masses. The Praxian general now hunched in broken silence. The galaxy watching. And he said only, "Not yet." Knox replied, "Understood." Holding. The arena lights dimmed. The hum of warships filled the sky like distant thunder. Micah Dawes turned to leave, and as he passed Threx, he paused. "Polite advice," he said. "Don't kick what you haven't studied, especially if it's smiling." And as he walked toward the gate, guards parted for him. The camera drone followed, and the last image it transmitted before the screen went dark was his dog tag, glowing softly, the word Alibaba YGA flickering beneath his breath. Then, for the first time in history, the Empire lowered its flag without a battle. Micah Dawes stood at the edge of the capital's cratered skyline, boots caked in alien soil, jacket torn and unbuttoned. Dog tag swaying gently in the wind like the last note of a funeral hymn. The Empire's once pristine towers had dimmed into silence, their synthetic brilliance gutted by the quiet unraveling of Earth's message. No missiles had fallen. No planet had burned. Yet the weight of what could have been suffocated every soul who had watched him walk free from the grand arena. They had rewritten their own stories now. They called him the Doctrine, not a man, a principle. A cautionary clause burned into policy, bedtime whispers, and war manuals. And he hadn't even fired a shot. In the ruins of the Senate Hall, General Threx knelt among shattered columns and flickering datapads. his posture not forced by wounds, but by choice. The transmission had gone out. Every corner of the Empire had seen the dog tag. They had seen a human brought in chains, seated beneath twin suns, outnumbered, outgunned, and smiling. They had watched as 72 warships bowed in orbit to a name, not a fleet, to a myth, not a king. That myth now sat on a bench outside a collapsed bakery, elbows on knees, watching the smoke curl and thinking of nothing in particular. Commander Evelyn Knox descended quietly from her personal shuttle, flanked by 2 silent officers. Her uniform was crisp, unburned, untouched by war. She looked like she had just stepped out of a peace conference, not a galactic reckoning. Dawes didn't stand. He didn't salute. He just looked at her the way old comrades do when they both remember things no one else survived. "You were early," she said, pulling off her gloves. "They kicked me," Dawes replied. Didn't like the way it felt. She sat beside him without a word. The silence between them had more history than most wars. Finally, she gestured toward the skyline. "Any regrets?" He thought for a long time, then shook his head. "Not about the doctrine. Maybe about the bakery." She smirked. "Still can't believe you didn't push phase 4. They weren't ready. They would have deserved it." "Deserving it," he said, "and needing it are 2 different things." She studied him, this soldier who had weaponized restraint, who had carried annihilation like a pocket knife and only ever implied its use. The galaxy would never recover from what it almost endured. "We traced back the data bursts," she said. "Threx's private security channel had been infiltrated for months. You let them capture you." "I guided them to," Dawes corrected. "They needed to see a leash they thought they could hold." "Why you?" He reached up and touched the tag. "Because they needed a face. Something they could underestimate." From the distance came the soft whir of Empire transports retreating into the sky, slowly, apologetically, like vultures leaving a meal they were too late to pick. In a classroom across the Empire, alien children now read stories about Earth with wide, silent eyes. They learned that humans once burned their own world and still came out stronger, that they laughed in loss and whispered threats in metaphors, that a single dog tag could carry the memory of every wrong and every consequence. Threx approached slowly, unarmed, wearing the ceremonial robes of surrender, deep blue with a single vertical red slash down the center. His upper arms hung limp, but the lower ones still moved with cautious intention. His eyes had aged since yesterday. Now they looked not at an enemy, but at an answer. "I came to offer terms," Threx said. Dawes leaned back. "We didn't ask." "I know. You're used to groveling once the shooting starts," Knox added. He looked at her, then at Dawes. "What do you want?" Dawes stood, brushed off his knees, and walked up to Threx until they were chest to chest, though the general still stood a foot taller. "You remember that moment," Dawes said, "when you hit me in the tribunal?" Threx didn't speak. "You thought I was harmless. You mistook silence for surrender. And now your cities flicker, your people watch Earth broadcasts, and your warships refuse to move without triple authorization." A pause. "We want that memory preserved," Dawes continued. "Unedited, untouched, taught, shared. We want your children to know the price of arrogance. You want humiliation. We want history." Knox stepped forward. "And we want protocols. A doctrine. A line in your charter that can never be removed. A warning. To never touch a human prisoner." Threx asked. "No," Dawes said quietly. "To never mistake our silence for weakness." There was a stillness then. Not heavy. Sacred. Even the wind seemed to hush. At the edges of the city, holographic banners flickered. The Empire's sigils, once dominant, now floated beside Earth's crest, equal, uneasy, and freshly inked into the future. Threx bowed his head. "It will be done." Dawes nodded once, then turned his back without fear. As Threx walked away, Knox leaned in close. "The doctrine worked," she said. "Too well," he replied. "They'll build monuments. They already are. I'd rather they plant trees." They watched as the first new foundation was laid in the square, alien and human engineers working side by side, quietly, urgently, like people aware that memory fades unless carved into stone. He handed Knox the dog tag. You earned it, he said. She stared at it, then slipped it into her jacket. Where will you go? She asked. Somewhere no one knows my name. You think that's possible? He smiled. Hope not. He turned to leave, boots crunching over shattered stone and broken pride. Knox watched him vanish into the smoke, then pulled out a communicator. Phase 4, a voice asked. She hesitated. No longer necessary, she said. The doctrine has spoken. And far above them, Earth's fleet turned as one. They didn't fire. They simply left. And the galaxy would never forget the day it was almost burned by a man with muddy boots and a name on a chain.